Today I'm going to tell you about the astonishing form of mediumship called physical mediumship. So if you're interested in mediumship and things like this, do come and see myself and Jane soon, because we're going to be demonstrating in the theatres. Only some small dues, but you know, so come along and have a look and learn about mental mediumship in this case, and giving evidence and proof in the work we do. And we should hopefully be able to show some of it on this channel if we can film it, but we can't always do that. Anyway, I'm going to tell you today about physical mediumship, because I've spoken in some of my other videos, and if you watched them recently, you'd have seen I've spoken about mental mediumship, which is when the mediumship comes through the medium's perceptions, and trance mediumship, in particular controlled mediumship and various types of controlled mediumship that come when the spirit guides are in control of the medium and give information through the medium this way. But there's another important form of mediumship called what we call physical mediumship. Now, there's been a lot of cheating in the past with some of it too, so when you look it up on the web you'll probably find all sorts of stuff where it's been debunked as well. But physical mediumship, if you see it, is an astonishing thing. I've only seen how can I say, snaps of it, really, where I've seen ectoplasm appear, or where I've seen a face appear over a person's face. But there is I believe that it is a real phenomena, and there's a lot of, and I've also seen a lot of cheats as well, which has been very disheartening. But let me just tell you about physical mediumship and what it is and how it works. Now, there are some mediums who have this ability. It's more of an ability, I think it's something physical in their bodies that gives them this ability to create what we call ectoplasm. Now, we don't know what ectoplasm is as such, but it appears as a sort of cheeseclothy sort of look to it. It has a quality of, it smells strange. It has a sort of, and it builds up as a starting usually as a mist, and then builds up into a physical form. This is a form of what we call materialization. And some of these mediums have this ability to, if you've got the right conditions, now this isn't something that can be done in a public forum, it can't be done under bright light because the ectoplasm is very responsive to light. And that hence it's done in a darkened seance room, completely pitch black seance room, which of course has given opportunities for the cheats to cheat, and they've used things like real cheesecloth and used luminous paint and things like this to have things appearing in the room. But that aside, there is the real phenomena of physical mediumship, and if the conditions are right and the settings right, then incredible things can be seen. I think this is probably something really, I mean, some of my mediumistic friends that were involved in much of the work with Gordon Higginson, for example, who was an incredible medium that could produce ectoplasm, used to say that maybe mediumship like this is only for the mediums themselves, for other mediums to see, to strengthen their faith, as it were, I suppose, in the power of what they can do, and what is the capabilities of mediumship generally. So when you see it, it is an absolute blessing. There are fakes around though, and you watch out for some of these fakes that are around. There's some terrible stuff that makes me very angry, which I've also put on other videos. You can look those up here. So anyway, just to keep you, this is more of a teaching video again about types of mediumship. So we get this thing called materialization. And what happens is the spirit people will use this ectoplasm to clothe themselves, as it were. And they will appear in the seance room, often appearing from the floor upwards, or sometimes the head will appear first and then the rest of them appear, or the feet will appear and then the rest of them, or sometimes it builds just as a mist that then gradually forms into a person, or sometimes just the hands appear. And the people can actually touch the spirits when they appear in this form, and put their hands through them as well. So there's been all sorts of interesting proofs that you can look up and find out more about by reading the history of spiritualism. So this is one form. This is called materialization. And if it can be witnessed, it's fantastic. There's been a lot more in the past. The only problem is, like I say, it's responsive to light, and I'm of those that believe that if this phenomena can appear in a darkened room, why not use light sensitive or dark room cameras, as it were, cameras that can X-ray cameras that can work in a complete dark environment, which we have nowadays because the military have developed those. So we don't need to keep saying, well, we can't have cameras in the room. We can. And when often some of the cheats I saw, you would say you mustn't wear metal, and yet I see them working next to a radiator, solid metal, because they didn't want people to take any photographs. So there's been a lot of cheats, and that's obviously very disheartening for anybody that is interested in physical mediumship. But from the stories that I've heard from people, the testimonials I've heard from people, the proofs that are in spiritualism, I'm pretty much convinced that materialization is real. I've seen it in Transfiguration, in which this ectoplasm will form over a person's face, and everybody present will see it. And it's like a thin veil that appears over the face and can be seen as the person from spirit, somebody else. It's apparently happened to me when I've been doing trance mediumship, and I haven't done trance mediumship for some years, but apparently it does appear. People in the circle have said they've seen faces appear over mine, and that's not trick of the light. We're not having lights at funny angles to make it look like this face is on a person's face. This appears in darkness. So that's called transfiguration. This is when a mask of ectoplasm comes over the front of a person, and everybody present in the seance room can see it. There's another one called direct and independent voice. Now, there was a medium called Leslie Flint that used to be particularly good with this. A voice used to appear in the seance room. So he'd be in trance, and it would be like a voice would just appear in the room, here in the room. You'd hear the spirit communicator completely independent of the medium that is sat there. You might hear the voice behind you, to the side of you, next to the left, to the right. There's not speakers put in the room or anything. Again, this was done in the times, particularly when there weren't possibility of doing this sort of thing. Usually a room is completely searched to make sure there's no trickery going on. But an independent voice like that will appear around the medium. Of course, with all forms of this type of mediumship, there's always going to be allegations that there's cheating going on. But not until you see it. It's like when I went to India and witnessed materializations, did I realise that materializations were real. They happen. I didn't see it within spiritualism in that case, but I saw it happening. I saw vibhuti appearing away from a holy man's fingers. Not on the fingers, not through the fingers, not dribbling from them, but appearing at a distance from it into the air. So these things are possible, but these are things you have to see with your own eyes. So that's direct and independent voice. It's usually done by a voice box being built up in the medium's throat out of ectoplasm from which the spirit can talk. Sometimes it's done with a trumpet in which the ectoplasm will form a kind of a cord to the trumpet and speak through the trumpet, and that trumpet will move around the room. And of course, there's been mediums caught with that. There was the famous case that was exposed about the medium who was caught holding the trumpet. I won't mention his name because he's still got living relatives, but that has happened as well. And then there's also another form of physical mediumship, I suppose, which is levitation, because when levitation happens in a circle, this is put down to a form of physical mediumship. Something physical and tangible is happening that everybody in the room can see. This isn't something we see through clairvoyance. This is something that actually happens. And then there's also percussion is another form. This is why sometimes you'll see on a medium's table, you'll see things like trampolines. Imagine that. No, tambourines, and bells, and you'll hear knockings on walls. This was most famous, of course, in the very onset of spiritualism, when the Fox sisters did this with the Hydesville rappings, in which knocking was heard around their house, around these little girls, and every time they they were present, there'd be this strange knocking, and they said it was the spirit of a tinker who was buried in the house. And in the end, they did find a dead body. Not a dead body. They found they found the bones of a tinker buried under the house. So there was kind of proof for these things. Again, highly controversial. Lots of people disagree with that, but it's worth investigating and looking up the history of spiritualism. Read the cases for and against this. A lot of arguments were put forward by people like Houdini, who found this whole thing absolutely preposterous. He thought that if he can do this, I can copy it. But that's another interesting story, to look up the stories of Houdini and Conan Doyle and the battles that went on to prove or disprove physical mediumship. But my case here is to give you some idea of the type of thing that we call this type of mediumship, to give you just a basic understanding of what spiritualists mean by physical mediumship. Now, there also within physical mediumship would come the whole idea of apports. Now, this is something that appears sometimes in circles, where an object will appear in the room. So they might have a table in the room and something might appear on it, something that has been dematerialized somewhere else and rematerialized in the room. So these things are kind of transported. That's hence the port, and they're usually taken from somewhere in the physical world and appear in the room. This is different to a materialization. This is something that's been brought to it. And also we have the opposite of apports, which is called asports, which means something that's in the room dematerializes and appears somewhere else. There was a group of mediums called the Bang Sisters, I believe, that were famous for production for this, and used to also produce things like psychic art, which again is a form of spirit physical mediumship. In the Bang Sisters, for example, used to produce paintings that were precipitated, they call it. So paintings would appear in the seance room, all painted, and were supposed to be paint put onto the canvas and thrown on the canvas and manipulated by the spirit world to produce paintings. So there's all sorts of incredible things that have happened within the history of spiritualism. Some of it might be a bit debatable. Some of it is certainly mind-boggling, and all of this really needs to be seen to be believed, I think, and also know that the setting that these things have been done in is foolproof, that nobody can cheat. And then there's also things such as slate writing. These were put into the room and the spirit would physically write with a chalk on the board and you see writing on the slate when after the séance. I've seen people cheat with that, so again, I don't like to propose it as being the de facto way of proving spirit. But then, they're always going to have those that spoil it for the real ones. And it's the same with even this mental mediumship. Those of us that do real mental mediumship get frustrated when we see others out there cheating, particularly on the theatres nowadays. People that know, for example, the names of everybody that sat in the audience because they got the record from the ticket office, has photographs given to them by people that they can pull out and talk about that person as if they're in spirit contact with them, when all they're doing is reading the face, or knows other information about the person through the mail list. That type of thing, horrible. And again, of course, it degrades any real mediums that are trying to do this properly. Okay, so I've covered most of it, but you can come and... There's also the spirit lights. That's another thing that's a physical mediumship, actually, and table tilting. So there's so many interesting things here. Even the Ouija board, I suppose, in some respects, is a form of physical mediumship. But anyway, just to give you a taster there of all the different types of mediumship that are there under this heading of physical mediumship, well worth looking into and having a good read about. You can come and see Jane and myself do not physical mediumship, mental mediumship, demonstrating mediumship. We're going to be doing some work again on a few small theatre groups. So come and see us, mainly in Southampton at the moment, and you can come and see us demonstrate live, and you don't have to give your names or anything. When you go to reception, you can just come in and watch it as a complete stranger, and hopefully you'll get a message from us, and that's how it should work. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. And if you're interested in this topic, obviously have a look at some of my books as well, because I talk about all types of mediumship in there. And do please also, if you're new, follow this channel, because we have new things coming every time. Just click that little bell and you'll get updates every week, every time a new video goes live. And thank you also to the patrons out there, because we're getting closer to be able to get a new situation arranged in which we can start to film seances live through this channel, but that's once we got all the money in place and all the cameras in place, we'll be bringing you something that I think you will find fascinating. Thank you for joining us again. See you soon. Bye for now. My wife Jane and I do our public work for free. We raise money through the theatres to raise money for our Hamilton Parker Foundation. This is a not-for-profit company that is soon to be registered as a charity. Now, our work is going in to help with the objectives of this charity, but you can help us as well by becoming what we call a patron of this channel. Now, as a patron, you'll get, first of all sorts of really interesting benefits. You'll have a sort of behind the scenes look at what goes on with our work. You'll get videos before other people. You'll get new videos. You'll get all sorts of benefits that are explained in the patron website, and it has various tiers that you can subscribe to. So you can subscribe to just a little bit and get a few benefits, or you can subscribe a lot and get a lot of benefits. And what this means is that we can raise some money through this channel. Now, this money's not going to me and Jane to give us a fancy lifestyle. This money is going into our foundation that has some fantastic objectives. Now, the first thing we want to do with the foundation is, first of all, get a cyber center together, a cyber temple, as it were, a place where we can introduce new people to you through this channel. So by supporting this channel and giving something to the as a patron, you will find that this channel will start to get better and better content with more and more interesting things going on. We'll be able to get the cameras, we'll be able to have the space, we'll be able to have the right setting where we can build the energy to do things such as mediumistic circles and so forth online. But also our work extends further than that, because we are hoping ultimately to build a spiritual center, a psychic ashram, as it were, where people like you can come to visit and take part in an interactive way through this channel as well. But also we are doing a lot of what we call spiritual service. We are going out and giving a large part of the income we generate to people in India who are destitute. We've given to schools, we've fed children that are in need, we've helped mentally handicapped people, we've given cows to old people in India. Some of all this you'd have seen in my movie Mystic Journey to India on Amazon. But all of this is part of our mission, part of our remit to help the world. Because we're not only trying to find our divine nature, we're also trying to live what we learn and express it in ways that are really beneficial to the world. So if you follow this channel, but more importantly, if you become a patron of this channel, you can help us to take this whole mission onto a much higher level than any psychic work has ever been done before.